last time CM Punk and Samoa Joe set foot in a wrestling ring together to go one-on-one, it was for a promotion called Frontier Wrestling Alliance, based over in England. This was in March of 2005. And Samoa Joe won that match, as he did most of their matches, except for the couple of time limit draws that they went to. Classic matches. In Ring of Honor, the 60-minute time limit draws that the two of them had. That was many, many years ago. They're a lot older now. They have a lot more mileage on their bodies. CM Punk, we weren't even sure if he would be back in AEW. So to get Punk and Joe in 2023 is something of a novelty. But it had some importance tonight because they had a match as part of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament in the semifinals. And we got that match tonight in the main event. And CM Punk is going on to the finals. CM Punk finally did what he could not do years ago. He beat Samoa Joe. Now, it was not a decisive win. It was one of those kind of fluke roll-up wins. But nonetheless, Punk has finally exercised his demons from many years ago. And he is moving on to the finals, where he will now set foot in the ring with Absolute Ricky Starks. And that match is going to be taking place in Calgary. They're heading to the Saddle Dome next week on Collision. But in addition to Punk and Joe was the main event tonight. Punk and Joe was the match that everybody was talking about. Punk and Joe showed up tonight. Punk and Joe got outshined tonight because there was another match on this show between FTR and Bullet Club Gold, Switchblade Jay White and Juice Robinson. It was a non-title match, but it was one of these AEW Eliminator matches they love doing. So even though the titles were not on the line, these two teams went in that ring tonight, and they had almost half an hour to prove to the world why they are two of the best tag teams in the entire world. And Jay White was not even part of a tag team up until a few weeks ago. Jay White, frankly, is a lot better than being part of a tag team, but I am enjoying what he is doing so far. I am enjoying what AEW is doing with Bullet Club Gold. They went in there tonight, and they had an incredible match. And I was going to say an incredible tag team match, but it almost does a disservice to the match. It wasn't just an incredible tag team match. It was an incredible wrestling match. One that will be, I'm sure, on many people's lists when this year is over. It's amazing when you give people time to build a story in the ring and let them go out there and do what they do best and take your time with it. It's amazing what they can gift you back. It's amazing what they can give you. And that's what we got tonight. We got a gift from these two tag teams. And even better, Bullet Club Gold got the win, which means that next week they're going to run it back again, only this time we're going to get it twice because they're having a 2 out of 3 falls match. Actually, we might get it 3 times. Who knows? But we're getting best 2 out of 3 falls rather next week. Coming out of tonight's match. I don't know how they're going to be able to top what they did, but it was tag team excellence at its finest. Now, at 6 o'clock this evening, Tony Khan put out a statement on Twitter that read, due to injuries suffered this week to, it was to Julia. They had a match in Japan. Willow Nightingale is not cleared to compete tonight on Collision in the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament. This semifinal match will be rescheduled to Friday night on Rampage to give her an opportunity to get cleared. Now, for those who don't know, Willow lost her New Japan Strong Openweight Women's Championship to Julia on Wednesday. And I saw that match. I was able to watch the match a few days ago, and she looked fine to me. Evidently, she was not fine. She came out of that match hurt, and that sucks. But good on AEW for looking out for the talent and not just saying, we have a big match tonight. You really, if you can go, you should go out there and work. Obviously, safety first, health first. So, that's understandable. I am starting to think, though, we've had 2 strong women's openweight champions. And, of course, in the first match, Mercedes was supposed to win. She got hurt. Willow became the champion. Now Willow loses the title to Julia, and apparently she gets hurt as well. I'm starting to think this belt might be cursed. So if I'm Julia, I'm being extra careful. Now, realistically, though, think about this, right? If you're in a tournament and you are unable to compete, we're going to be honest about this. they shouldn't be rescheduling the match for another week. Willow should be eliminated. She should be forfeiting her match, and Athena should be going to the finals. Now, I happen to think that Willow is going to win the entire tournament, which would kind of fuck up their plans if that's the case. And I definitely want to see the match. I'm glad that we're still going to get it. But I'm just saying, and this is the same thing with Britt Baker and Ruby Soho the other night. Britt Baker was ill. She fell ill. She was unable to wrestle in the tournament, so they pushed it back. You really shouldn't be pushing anything back. If you can't wrestle, then you lose via forfeit. But I'll suspend my disbelief for this because, again, I'm looking forward to seeing the match. I'm not looking forward to the fact that they're putting this match on Rampage. I don't understand that at all. Rampage is taped the same night as Dynamite. It's not as if, well, they want to give her a couple of extra days to get cleared in case she's not ready to come back by Wednesday. Maybe by Friday she'll be okay. Rampage next week, like every other week, is a taped show. They are taping Rampage right after Dynamite. So it's on the same night. Why does this match need to be on Rampage? Why not just have this match on Dynamite? It's almost like Tony Khan is allergic to having more than one women's match on Dynamite. I'm begging you, Tony. Have 2 women's matches on Dynamite. It won't kill you for 1 week. But instead, they're going to save the match for Rampage next Friday. But let's go through this entire show. I am the Solomonster. This is your AEW Collision review here for Saturday night, July 8th, 2023. I know we have a lot of people who are not watching wrestling tonight. There are a lot of people who normally would join us for these streams who are not around. And I can tell the activity here is actually not existed. So that's not good. But we are going to talk about what I thought overall was a very enjoyable show. Maybe not next week if it's going to be dead like this, but we'll take it one day at a time here. But do hit that subscribe button and hit the like button as well, if you would be so kind. Super chats are open, although evidently people forgot about that, but super chats are open. And Taylor Cannon, I know Taylor gifted a membership before we went live, so Taylor, thank you for that. Channel memberships, as they are every day, are open here on this channel. There we go. Hey, Julio Scissors dropping a $10 super chat. Man, I should give you a gold star. You're the first one tonight. I'm glad it's working. I was a little worried that maybe it was broken. Maybe I padlocked it shut and I forgot to unlock it before I went live. Hey, Julio, thank you, brother. Now, they were in Regina tonight. This takes me back to the other night on the Dynamite stream when we were talking about all these wonderful Canadian provinces and these towns and these different, I guess, cities they would be in some cases. I was told, I learned something new the other night. Apparently, there's a place in Canada called Goobies. We have Regina. I mean, there's somebody actually sent me a link on Twitter. There was another very obscene one. I forgot what the name of it was, but I think somebody was having fun when they were coming up with all these names for these different places in Canada. They were in Regina. They were at the Brant Center. And I was curious how big the Brant Center was, so I looked it up. It's not a big building. You know, it has a capacity of about 6,000. They only had the building.
Gunther. Jerry Lawler loves Gunther the Magnificent. All hail Gunther.
Oh, man, Gunther felt sorry for me. Gunther said, man, this guy, he's got nowhere else to be on a Saturday night but watching wrestling like he does every other fucking day of the week. And Gunther wanted to keep me company. Gunther and Drew Johnson. A $50 super chat. Drew says, Saturday night's all right for fighting Bebe. Drew, thank you. Tell Gunther I said hi. I figured he would be out, hitting the clubs and everything here on a Saturday night. Especially with that deep voice, right? Gunther has that deep voice, man. He can get fucking laid all night long, this guy. But like I said, a smaller building, capacity of 6,000. They only had the building set up for about 2,800 tonight. So just shy of 3,000 is what they had it set up for. They could not even hit 2K. They had about 1,900 in the building tonight. So when I saw those numbers, I was appalled. I know some of these places in Canada are not very big, but the fact that they couldn't even move 2,000 tickets for this show, I was a little worried, you know, with a big main event like Punk and Joe and a small crowd like that, you never know what you're going to get. But I have to give a shout out to the people who were in that building in Regina tonight, because you would never know they only had 1,900 people in that building. They were loud. For the majority of the show, they were loud. So shout out to them. We got another great Saturday night's main event style opening. I love the way they do these intros. The only thing missing, honestly, they could have replaced the Elton John song when they debuted this show. Part of me, I will say, and people would have complained, oh, they're just copying. They're just copying WWE. But if I knew they were going to go back and use an 80s song to open the show with every week, I so wish they would have brought back Obsession by Animotion. How fucking great would that have been? But we get the Saturday night's main event style promos from some of the wrestlers here as we open things up. We had comments from Ricky Starks. We had comments from Powerhouse Hobbs, Samoa Joe, CM Punk about their Owen Hart Foundation matches tonight. Punk, in his comments, said that he and Joe have history together, and he is going to talk about it right now. And that he walked off, and that took us into the Elton John intro. And when we came back live into the arena, Punk was already walking to the ring, and they still had the Elton John music playing. So Punk is walking down. He's in his street clothes. He's asking for a microphone. And he cut his promo outside the ring. Now, he didn't get in the ring. He just was pacing back and forth outside the ring while he spoke to the crowd. And he said that this is Stampede Country, and that tonight is the biggest match of his career. And I rolled my eyes at that one. He said it feels like the finals of the tournament, but it's really not. He goes, if he said that, it would be looking past Powerhouse Hobbs or Absolute Ricky Starks. He didn't want to do that. 18 years, he said, since he's been in the ring with Samoa Joe. And Nicholas, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. I stand corrected. I'm sorry. The Elton John song, yeah, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure exactly what the year was. 1975. Thank you. Let me rephrase what I said. What I meant to say, if they were going to go with an old school classic song and not something more contemporary, okay? That's what I meant to say. If I knew they were going to go with an older song, I wish they would have gone with Obsession. Well, the Elton John song is fine too. But just, you know, for old-time nostalgia's sake, that's what I meant. So, Punk said 18 years since he's been in the ring one-on-one with Samoa Joe. Of course, they were in that six-man tag a few weeks ago. He said the one name he wants to hear people chanting for tonight here in Regina is Owen Hart. And what was really cool about it is that at the very end of the show, the crowd chanted Owen's name. So they remembered what Punk said at the beginning, and they chanted Owen's name at the end of it. Drew Johnson dropping another $50 Gunther bomb. Solomonster, you're the man. I support you, my friend. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for everything that you do. Always good to have Drew with us here on the channel. Drew has been a beast on some of these streams, but I wasn't sure if Drew was going to be watching Collision. Drew, did you watch Collision tonight? Or are you just tuning into the stream? Let me know. The crowd didn't just chant Owen's name at the end of the show. They chanted Owen's name here and there throughout the entire show, which was very cool to see. Oh boy. Liquid Sharingan with the $25 Brie mode. Brie mode activated. I will be getting to your super chats here, whichever ones come in a little bit. So Liquid, hang on there for a bit. Punk said that if it wasn't for Owen, a lot of the locker room would be empty right now, and he might not be here right now himself. So you could talk about him, you could talk about Joe, you could talk about Hobbs, you could talk about Starks, but none of them would be here if it wasn't for Owen Hart. And then he walked over to the Owen Hart trophy that they have on that stand in the aisleway, and he said he's not a superstitious person. He'll walk under ladders, he'll break mirrors, and he'll touch the trophy, not because he thinks he deserves it, but because he will earn it. And And Punk said that he couldn't promise victory because he's never beaten Joe before, and a lot of people think he never will. But tonight, win, lose, or draw, he will pour his heart out until there is nothing left to give, and he will leave everything in the ring for the fans and for Owen. He touched the cup, he kissed it, and they played him off to the Elton John song from 1975. Before throwing it to a video package, hyping the match, and they included footage, of course, of their past matches from Ring of Honor, because Tony owns Ring of Honor, and he owns the Ring of Honor library, so he has access to all that past footage. I could have done, Punk was pandering to the crowd, he was, but I could have done without him claiming that this was going to be the biggest match of his career. Because there's no way he believes that, and there's no way anybody in the building believed that, so there was no need to even say that. You could very easily just say, look, it's been 18 years since me and Joe have gone one-on-one. I've never been able to beat Joe. I have to beat Joe. I want to do this for Owen, and that would have been fine. Saying that this is the biggest match of your career, that was going a little too far. But I thought overall this opening was a very good way to get people hyped up for that main event. Ricky Starks was up next against Powerhouse Hobbs. Powerhouse, right? That's the music? Is that how the music goes? Powerhouse. Thank God I don't sing entrance themes here for a living. Hey, Gabriella, what's going on? Gabriella's with us tonight in the chat. Gabriella, how are you not out? On a Saturday night, hanging out somewhere with someone. Come on. So this was a semifinal match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. I want to show you a photo here because I love this. This was the Owen Hart tribute singlet that Powerhouse Hobbs was wearing tonight. Black with the pink trim and the heart on it. Just like Owen used to wear back in the day. Just like Owen wore WrestleMania 10 for a lot of his matches. I thought that was very cool. I thought that was actually a very cool look. Now, QT Marshall got involved in this match early on. He was choking Starks while Hobbs had the referee's attention. Hobbs dropped Starks with a delayed vertical suplex. He sent Ricky into the corner with a hard Irish whip. Ricky was moaning in pain as they headed into picture-in-picture. Hobbs cut off a Rochambeau attempt by driving Ricky back into the corner. He was clubbing him with lariats. Hobbs hoisted up Starks on his shoulders, and he began climbing to the middle rope. Now, Ricky slipped out. He ended up powerbombing how he got underneath Hobbs, and he powerbombed him down to the mat for a near fall. Starks went for a tornado DDT, and this is where things fell apart. He went for the tornado DDT. He slipped on the ropes. And instead of just resetting and trying again or just moving on, he tried to save the spot. They both did. He slipped again. Then he tried to go hit the DDT anyway, and they kind of tumbled over, and it just looked awkward and terrible, and they botched it. It happens, but this did not look good. So Starks went to go hit the ropes. He got tripped up by QT. Hobbs then put Starks down with a spine buster. He got a visual pin because the referee was tending to QT Marshall, who was still standing on the apron. So his man has the match won. All QT has to do is get down from the apron, and Powerhouse Hobbs moves on to the finals. Inexplicably, he stayed on the apron. He was arguing with Aubrey Edwards. Aubrey Edwards was yelling at him. Hobbs, I mean, you could have counted to 10, right? He's got the match won. So Hobbs was not pleased about this. He got up in QT's face, and is asking him, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? And he's telling him to get down off the apron. And QT continues to stand on the apron. And this is going on for an awkwardly long period of time here. And I'm watching this and I'm going, what are they waiting for? Why doesn't he just get down from the apron? What is he arguing with this man for? Just logically, right? So this looked completely ridiculous. Finally, Ricky Starks, he knocks Hobbs into QT Marshall because that's what they were waiting for, I guess. They were waiting for Ricky to nail Hobbs from behind. Hobbs would then go into QT and knock QT off the apron. So I don't know if it was by design, and I'll talk about that later. It's possible this was done this way on purpose. But it didn't look like it was done on purpose. I think they were just waiting for Ricky. Ricky maybe was late. But this just looked, this looked just awful. So finally, QT gets knocked off the apron. Starks then spears Hobbs when Hobbs turns around, and he pins him to advance to the finals of the tournament. Now, after the match was over, QT gets in the ring. He's pleading his case to an obviously very upset Powerhouse Hobbs. Hobbs shoves him down on his ass, and the people cheer. So now QT is sitting down, kind of leaning up against the ropes, looking up at Hobbs and big wide eyes and begging off. And Hobbs is standing there, and he looks like he's about to just, eat this guy for lunch. He's staring down at him, and then he's continuing to stare, and he's continuing to stare. And again, just this awkwardly long period of time. It's like, shit, or get off the pot, dude. Are you going to attack this guy or not? What are you staring at him for? He's not, he's not going to get any uglier. So then Aaron Solo hits the ring. So again, they were waiting for Aaron Solo to hit the ring. I don't know if people were missing their time cues or what was going on here. Solo hits the ring. He gets between them. And finally, Hobbs gives him a spine buster. When Hobbs turned back to QT, Harley Cameron climbed into the ring. She got between the two of them. And that's when Hobbs at that point decided, I'm done here. And he left the ring and he marched to the back. The match itself, I thought it was a decent match. It was nothing like the last match they had at Grand Slam last year. The one that I sat through at Arthur Ashe at 12:45 in the morning. That was a great match. This was nothing like that match. Not even close. It was a decent match. It's too bad about the botched DDT spot. Ricky, I thought, had a good recovery from it. He started banging on the mat, trying to get the crowd fired up, and it worked. So I had, from the start of all this, I had Ricky Starks winning the entire tournament. So I was glad to see him win. Hobbs losing, I can excuse that if it leads to where it appears to be going, which is Splitsville, with him and the QT crew. Powerhouse Hobbs does not need to be with QT Marshall. QT Marshall, for his part, is very good at getting heat. Maybe not Don Callis level heat, but Powerhouse Hobbs is not a good fit for this. He does not need to be with this crew. So if they are beginning the story here of a split, this didn't feel like a split. This felt like the beginnings of a split coming up. I'm all for it. If him losing here is the spark that gets that going, then I think that's great. They keep in mind, they just brought John Morrison into the company. He's Johnny TV now. He's part of QT's crew, which has me wondering now if they brought him in effectively as a replacement for Hobbs. If Hobbs is going to leave, right? If he's going to end up splitting away from QT's crew, he could work a match or he could work a program with Morrison coming out of that. So it kind of makes sense that they bring, Johnny TV. I still hate that name. I still don't know why he can't just be Johnny Elite, but bringing him in now starts to make a little more sense to me if Hobbs is going to be leaving, because then Hobbs can feud with him. So we got a Miro vignette. He said that no one can hurt the man who has nothing left to covet. He said that he can't be tempted by a shiny belt, a false god, or a double-jointed hot wife. He said that he senses a battle is coming, and it is the one that we have all been waiting for. I want to hear more about this double-jointed hot wife. I don't give a shit about that other stuff. I need to hear more about this. Tony Schiavone was in the back. He was standing with Willow Nightingale. Willow! I'm sorry. I just involuntary. Sometimes I lapse into it. It just takes me back to a time that I'd rather forget. Talk about Willow. Willow Nightingale, and Tony Schiavone noted that she was not medically cleared tonight to compete in the Owen Hart tournament. She suffered an injury in Japan. Athena then showed up, her would-be opponent tonight, the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. She questioned the legitimacy of the injury. I'm not sure how injured you really are. She also mocked Willow for losing the New Japan Strong Women's title. Willow said that she would win the entire tournament, and when she does, she might just go after that belt over Athena's shoulder. And Athena played up the possibility that Willow might not be cleared in time for their match on Rampage next Friday, but if by chance she is, and if by chance she finds a way to win, she'll think about it. She'll think about giving her a shot at the Ring of Honor Women's title. Wrong Willow. I say, sometimes it just happens involuntarily. I have no control over it. That's a different Willow. So we had Julia Hart against the local talent Bambi Hall. Bambi is the daughter of former Canadian wrestler Raven Lake, for those who are aware of who that is. This was not anything terribly long here. Julia made short work of her. She submitted her with her Rings of Saturn style finish. I think she calls it Heartless. Yeah, look, I mean, again, it was short. I like Julia's music. I think her whole presentation is good. And she seems to be gaining more confidence in the role. I mean, I remember cheerleader Julia Hart when she first started out. And she's still young, but when she first started, what was she, 20 years old, something like that? So, more time that she has on TV to develop her persona and her character is good. But this was too short to really comment anything beyond the fact that she won. We had a Malachi Black video, the leader of the House of Black. We had a vignette from him. He spoke about stealing Andrade El Idolo's mask. He said that Andrade does not become who he is until he takes off the mask, whereas he has to wear his own mask to hide who he really is. Black said that he would teach Andrade that he is better without the mask than he ever was when he wore it. So then we come back live. And Andrade is in the back being interviewed by Lexi Nair. And Lexi asks what Andrade's mask means to him. This is so backward. I'll talk about that in a second. Andrade said that he's a businessman, and he questioned if Black thinks that he hides behind his mask. He said that he's not a coward like Malachi is. And Andrade said the mask is about his family, his culture, and his people. Normally, you would establish what makes the item that was stolen so important. Like, I think back to the lean years of 94, 95 in WWE. I think back to 1995. They did an entire storyline based around the fact that the Pirate, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, stole Bret Hart's jacket. He stole his jacket. Now, we've been seeing, at that point, we have been seeing Bret Hart come out to the ring wearing a leather jacket for years. And he had multiple different leather jackets. It had never been established on television that Bret Hart was attached in some way to his jackets. He just wore them out to the ring. And one day, Jean-Pierre Lafitte stole the jacket, and it sparked an entire feud. They got a pay-per-view match out of it that, as I remember, was actually pretty good. At one of the In Your House shows. Might have been September of 95, I think. But it kind of reminded me of that. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't give a shit about the jacket. What do I care? They never established the importance of the items. Same thing here. Like, they steal Andrade's mask, explain to us why it's important to him, and then have them steal the mask. They did it the other way around.
The Magnificent.
All backwards.
All hail Gunther.
Oh my God. And Gunther agrees with me. You know why? Because this man has common sense. Hey, Drew Johnson with another $50 Gunther bomb. I believe that's number 3 tonight. Drew wants to bring back the phone calls to the review. Well, I'm not set up for the phone calls tonight. Although I am open to the possibility of bringing them back here and there, but I'm not set up for it. But when I am, though, you should definitely call it. We'll have to take Drew's call. But I can't do that tonight. So we'll have to share your messages and your thoughts and everything here via the live chat and via Super Chat. Drew, thank you. So yeah, look, I don't care about the mask stuff. I know they're trying to tell a story here. That's fine. I don't give a shit about the mask. I just want to see the two of them in the ring in a match. I look forward to the singles match between them. I don't know if they're waiting for an episode of Collision. I don't know if they're waiting for Wembley Stadium. I don't know when they're planning on doing this match. But mask or no mask, Andrade one-on-one with Malachi Black, that's the match I want to see. Now, after this, it was time for the World Tag Team Championship Eliminator, FTR. The reigning AEW World Tag Team Champions taking on Bullet Club Gold, Switchblade Jay White, and Juice Robinson. This was, in a word, outstanding. If you're a fan of tag team wrestling, if you're a fan of professional wrestling, that I don't see how you can watch this match and not have a smile on your face and be happy with what you saw when this match was over. In everything in wrestling, you could always pick it apart and find certain things here and there. Oh, I didn't like that, or oh, this could have been done a little bit better. I felt that way about the finish of this match. Right? It was not perfect. But when this match was over, I just sat here and I said, this is what Collision should be all about. You have a show on Wednesdays. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not so great. But Dynamite has a certain pace to it. It's very manic. It's very frenzied. It moves way too fast sometimes. And they try to cram so much stuff in. And you don't have a chance to go out and see a 28-minute long professional wrestling clinic like the one that we had tonight. And that's one of those things they can use to separate the two shows going forward and make Collision the wrestling show. You're not going to get a match like this every single week. But Collision has the chance to be able to give us something that Dynamite just can't, just by virtue of how the show is formatted every week. That's one of the benefits of this show. This right here is the match that stole the show tonight. Not even close. It started slow, and it built from there because they knew they had time. Had almost half an hour. So there's no need to come right out of the gate full bore. You take your time with it. It built like a pay-per-view match. Jay White started with Dax, and Dax forced him to the ropes. Robinson and Wheeler tagged in after a bit. So again, they were kind of feeling each other out here, the feeling out process. We went to the first picture-in-picture break. Coming out of the break, Dax took the classic Bret Hart corner bump chest first from Juice. He whipped him into the corner. He took a turnbuckle. Nobody took a turnbuckle like Bret Hart. So if anybody was going to try to replicate that move, you knew it was going to be Dax Harwood. Later on in the match, Jay White dropped Cash stomach first on the apron to take control for his team. He spat at Dax before locking on a Muda lock. And spitting on Dax only got him to come into the ring. And as Jay White had the Muda lock locked on, right? Dax decides to deliver a knife-edge chop to the chest. There's nothing Jay White could do because he didn't see it coming. So that broke the hold. That's one way to break the Muda lock.
With a tear in my eye.
With a tear in your eye. That's one way to break the Muda lock. Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Daniel Malcolm, with the 1992 Super Chat. Thank you very much. Uffman, maybe you're right. I don't know. What Uffman is saying wasn't the story with Bret's jacket that his mom made him that jacket. It might have been, but again, it was not established beforehand, I don't think, right? Maybe that was established after the fact. But it wasn't as if before he decided to steal the jacket, or was it? I don't remember that. I don't remember them establishing the fact that, oh, Bret's mom made him this jacket, and then the pirate guy decided to steal it. But it's been a long time since I have seen that match or the build-up to it. All I remember is that one day the jacket got stolen, and I just thought to myself, why should I care about this? But anyway, back to this match here. Jay White sent Dax into the barricade outside the ring. This was after the Muda lock got broken. Back inside, Wheeler caught White in a small package, and Juice had the referee's attention. White then suplexed Cash into the corner, and that gave Bullet Club Gold the advantage. Back and forth we went here multiple times. Wheeler fought free to make a tag, and this is something else I wanted to highlight here. One of the things I loved about this match, multiple times here during this match, they had these great hope spots and these great hot tags and near hot tags. This was classic old school tag team wrestling. It felt like classic old school Southern tag team wrestling. This was like something you would see from the Midnights and the Rock and Roll Express if you watched the NWA back in the day. That's what this felt like. So the way they worked in these hot tags and the attempts at the hot tags, FTR is so good at that. We got a lot of that here during this match. Now, Harwood got knocked off the apron. That forced Cash to have to fight 2-on-1 all by himself. Jay White low-bridged Wheeler to the floor. That took us into another commercial break. Back from that, Wheeler dodged a corner charge before finally getting the hot tag from Dax, and they had the crowd with them. Again, I'm telling you, 1,900 people in this building, and they were allowed 1,900. They were loving this match. So Dax comes into the match. He ran wild on the heels. Harwood caught Jay White in a small package before dropping him with a brainbuster for a near fall. Crowd chanted, "This is awesome." Dax brought White to the top rope. Robinson, though, headbutted Harwood down. Cash Wheeler dropped Robinson with a side suplex. We got the powerplex from FTR. FTR then set up for a spike pile driver, but Jay White sent Dax to the floor. Juice hit Wheeler with the left hand of God, which set up the Blade Runner. FTR blocked it, though. Robinson broke up the Shatter Machine attempt that followed, or I guess the Big Rig. FTR hit the spike pile driver for a near fall that Juice broke up. Juice tagged into the match. Jay White, though, got a blind tag. And we had the Juice box into the Blade Buster that scored another near fall. So the crowd now is chanting "Fight Forever," which was a nice little bit of promotion for the video game. Four-way brawl breaks out. It ends with Harwood hitting a rebound powerbomb on Jay White, bounces him off the top rope, beautiful powerbomb, near fall only. Harwood then hit a sliding uppercut for another near fall. Cash took out Robinson. Jay White, though, dropped Wheeler with a Blade Runner. And Harwood and White, they started exchanging chops and forearms before Juice tagged in blind. Harwood rolled up Jay White, not realizing that Juice was the legal man, and that allowed Juice to hit his facebuster finish. Wheeler slid into the ring. And as best as I can tell, and I went back and I watched the end of this match during the next commercial break, I think the idea here, and I think the announcers may have mentioned this, was that Jay White was going to stop that Cash Wheeler before he broke up the pin. The problem is that when Cash slid into the ring, Jay White was looking the opposite way, and I'm not sure if that was just him selling or if he really just, for a moment there, forgot, what the spot was and forgot where Cash was. But Cash slid into the ring. Nobody stopped him. Jay White turned around. Cash was already there, so he was already too late. In any other circumstance, the referee would have stopped the count because we've seen that so many times, right? All you got to do is dive into the ring. Whether you touch the person or not, the referee's count will stop. And the referee just counted 3. So initially, it almost looked like, they botched the finish. I don't think they botched the finish. I just think because Jay White didn't really cut him off the way that he was supposed to, it just looked awkward and made for a flat finish. So, which is a shame because everything they were doing up until this point, especially in those final few minutes, was hot. And the crowd was hanging on every near fall. It was great. Everything was smooth. They were going back and forth. I couldn't figure out who was going to win this match. This match could have gone either way. But then that finish, and it just was, it was kind of a meh finish to what otherwise was a superb wrestling match. And I am guessing that these 4 were the beneficiary of Athena and Willow Nightingale getting their match cut from the show. Yeah, the Julia Hart match, I'm sure was just a match they threw out there because the other match got cut. But the Julia Hart match, if it went 90 seconds, I'd be shocked. So yeah, they put that match on the show just to have something on the show. Between the entrance and the match, it didn't go very long. This match, not a doubt in my mind, this match ended up longer and probably better for having the other match cut. So I think they ended up being the beneficiaries of that. And I'm glad that these two teams got the chance to go out there and have the time to show people what they really could do. There's a lot of times we get matches on TV and they're just, they're cut up by commercials and they don't get that much time. And I end up, when the match is over, I end up saying, well, the match was good, but I know these two are capable of more. No, when this match was over, what you saw here, this is exactly what they're capable of. We got to see that here in the ring tonight. This was a pay-per-view caliber match, a pay-per-view caliber main event match. Again, I don't know that when this year is over, if this is going to make the top 10 or top 15. When I put my match of the year list together, there's been a lot of great matches already so far this year. But it's definitely going on the list. And like I said before, this is the kind of stuff I want to see them doing more of on Collision. Because they have the time to let these matches breathe, give them more time that they don't normally do on Wednesdays.
Gunther the Magnificent. All hail Gunther.
All hail. All hail the mighty one himself, Drew Johnson, yet again with a $50 Gunther. Yeah, I'm going to start saying all hail Drew. What am I saying all hail Gunther for? Fuck that. All hail Drew. Man. Drew, I will get to your message here in a little bit, and everybody else as well. So thank you very much, man. That means a lot. But yeah, this was great. I've said all that needs to be said about this match. If you were out, if you were not watching the show, and you want my recommendation on what you need to go back and watch, even more than Punk and Joe, if there's one thing I would say, go out of your way to make sure that you watch this match. This is the match right here. FTR against Bullet Club Gold. So there you go. That's my recommendation of the week. After a commercial, Tony Schiavone was in the back with FTR, who were quickly interrupted by their opponents tonight, Jay White and Juice Robinson. Jay White noted that they had beaten FTR now twice in 2 weeks, or I think he said twice in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and that they wanted to beat them twice in one night. And they challenged FTR to a 2 out of 3 falls match for their AEW World Tag Team titles, which by virtue of beating them in this Eliminator, they earned the right to challenge for the championship. But he wanted to be 2 out of 3 falls. And FTR, of course, accepted the challenge. The best part of this, though, was Jay White, once again, he's done this before, calling Dax Harwood Fuzzy Wuzzy Bear. And Dax telling him, I'm going to fuzzy wuzzy all over you, right in Regina. Seems appropriate for all of these different places in Canada that he would do that. They're going to be back in Canada yet again next week, so it might get a little explicit during this match. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But Dax said something else that was very interesting, and it was so understated, it was almost under his breath. Like, there's probably a lot of people who didn't even pick up on this. But as he was talking to Jay White, he made a comment. He said something to him about, maybe I'll bring a surprise next week. And I don't know if he meant anything by that, if that was put in there for a reason, but it does strike me that the show next week, when they're going to have their 2 out of 3 falls match, is in Calgary. It's going to be at the Saddle Dome. And I don't know what his contract status is as far as his Legends deal with WWE. But, so again, it could be something where it would prevent him from doing this. But how great would it be if FTR as a surprise next week in Calgary introduces Bret Hart down to the ring to be their manager and be in their corner for their match against Bullet Club Gold. There was a period late last year where Bret was the manager for FTR on some independent shows. And I remember at the time saying, why is Tony Khan allowing this and not doing this on his television show first? Like, why wouldn't you have Bret Hart introduce FTR for a match or escort FTR to the ring for a big pay-per-view match or something? And the belief was that Bret is not able to do that because he's under some sort of a deal with WWE that would preclude him from doing anything with AEW. That may well be the case. That could still very well be the case. But when he mentioned the word surprise, and I remembered where they're going to be next week, it just struck me that that would make all the sense in the world if they had Bret Hart in their corner to manage them next week. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll have to just wait and see. We got a Shawn Spears video package highlighting his time as the chairman. Christian then noted that Spears would be getting a TNT title match next week at Battle of the Belts. Yeah, they're still doing the Battle of the Belts, everybody. I believe they are up to Battle of the Belts 7, which is now going to be, I guess, an hour long after Collision next week. So Collision goes from 8 to 10, and then they're basically doing a third hour of Collision from 10 to 11, and they're calling it Battle of the Belts. So if you want to stay up until 10:30 at night to watch Luchasaurus against Shawn Spears for the TNT Championship, you're in luck. So that'll be next Saturday. I don't think I'll be doing that. And by the way, initially they mentioned the FTR match was going to be part of Battle of the Belts, or Battle of the Belts, right? But then later in the show, when they showed the graphic for it, it was for Collision. So I don't know what's going on there. I'll definitely be tuning in for that match. Yeah, I'm not a fan of these Battle of the Belts shows. Battle of the Belts is pointless. I get it's something the network does, so hey, Tony's gonna he's gonna be like, okay, you want more programming from us, okay? But the Battle of the Belts shows so far up to this point have been a complete waste of time. We had the returning Scorpio Sky. one-on-one with Action Andretti. This was Scorpio Sky's first match in almost a year, to the day. It was July 6th of last year that he last wrestled. I believe that was the night he lost his TNT Championship to Wardlow. So 1 year later, here he is back in action. I'm still not clear on exactly why he missed a year. I know he was hurt. I was not of the impression it was so serious that it would keep him out for a year. Maybe it was. That's an awfully long time to be missing. But this was his big return. We came back from commercial with Andretti fighting out of a chin lock. He was firing up on Scorpio. Andretti hit a dive to the floor, back inside. Scorpio avoided a springboard 450, but he ran into a Spanish fly that almost landed him right on top of his head. Andretti hit a shotgun drop kick, but hit Sky's knees on a split-legged moonsault attempt. And Scorpio Sky won with his TKO finish. When the match was over, he shook hands with Action Andretti. They adhered to the code of honor, I guess. And he left. So I guess he's supposed to be a babyface now. Or at least he wants us to believe he's a babyface until one day he lowers the boom on the other guy. But for now, anyway, Scorpio Sky is obviously a babyface. If this was meant to be a showcase for Scorpio Sky, then it failed. Because Action Andretti is the one who came across far more impressive of the two in this match. So he may have gotten the win, but the one that I was left impressed by when it was over was not Scorpio Sky, it was the other guy. So again, if the idea was to highlight Scorpio Sky, I don't think this was very successful in doing so. And then it was time for the main event. It was a semi-final match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. The first time in 18 years. CM Punk one-on-one with Samoa Joe. I've been waiting for this all week. Ever since they announced Punk was coming back, I was hoping Joe would be his very first opponent. I was hoping Joe would win. To keep the story going that CM Punk can't beat Samoa Joe. So we got the match tonight. They started slow. Punk was avoiding chops, landing a few of his own. And Punk locked in a headlock. So they were calling back to their trilogy in Ring of Honor with some of the spots they were doing here. Punk kept avoiding the chops. Joe, though, walked out of the way of a crossbody before finally landing a huge chop to Punk's back. And big chop to his chest. Joe hit another chop and kicked Punk down before dropping him with punches in the corner. Joe dropped Punk with the back elbow. Went for the face wash in the corner, but Punk avoided it. And Punk went to the second rope. Joe chopped him over the top to the floor. That took us into what I believe was the final picture-in-picture break here on this show. Joe knocked Punk down as we came back from the break. And Joe locked Punk in a chin lock. Missed the knee drop, though. Punk tried to fire up. He hit a leg lariat and a rising knee. And when Samoa Joe caught him in the coquina clutch, Punk dropped him with a back suplex. Punk hit another trio of rising knees. He went to the top for the elbow drop, and he hit it. Only got a near fall out of it. He went for the... it almost seems disrespectful to Randy Savage to call it the Randy Savage elbow, because Randy Savage had a much better elbow than CM Punk does. I never thought Punk's elbow drop looked great. Still don't. Kairi Sane. Kairi has a much better elbow drop than CM Punk does, but she's also a tiny woman. So when you see her just flying through the air the way that she does, it just looks far more impressive. It actually looks far more impactful than Punk's does. But that did not work. He only got a near fall out of it. Punk called for the go to sleep. Joe took him down into a crossface. Punk got to the ropes. Joe caught him with a snap power slam, though, for a near fall. This is where the crowd once again started chanting for Owen Hart. Punk caught Joe with a high kick. Went to the top again, but Joe cut him off, and he tried for the muscle buster. Punk fought out, though, and dropped Joe with a neck breaker. Another go-to-sleep attempt got avoided yet again. Punk slipped out of the coquina clutch, though. He rolled up Joe, and he got the 1-2-3. He got the shock win. By the skin of his teeth, CM Punk is going on to the finals of the Owen Hart tournament, where he will now wrestle Ricky Starks next week at the Saddle Dome. After the match was over, Joe sold this so good. Joe sold this so good because, look, Joe never lost to CM Punk before, right? He was convinced he was going to beat Punk again. Punk stole the win on him. And so Joe couldn't believe it. He's got his hands up on his hair like, oh, he couldn't believe this. So then he composes himself and he stands up and he puts his hand out for the handshake, and you think, all right, he's gonna show respect to this man here, right? The code of honor is gonna be adhered to. He offers a handshake to Punk. And Punk at first he was a little weary of it, but then he accepts the gesture. And that turned out to be a mistake, because Samoa Joe snatched up CM Punk and he locked him in the coquina clutch and he tried to choke him out. He took him down to the mat. Joe is screaming, I've always been better than you. I've always been better than you. So Punk was out. Joe left the ring. And at this point, it's already 10 p.m. Might have been 10:01. Joe goes outside. He grabs a chair. FTR comes jogging down in respect to Dax, or not Dax, but to Cash Wheeler. He was holding his ribs. He was trying to sell the injuries from their match earlier as they were jogging down to the ring. Joe saw them, and so he thought better of getting in the ring and doing anything. And then Ricky Starks, who has been very friendly with Punk and FTR now for the past several weeks, he slowly walks out on stage and he stops there and he just gazes at the ring where Punk has now come to, as FTR is trying to assist him. And Ricky is looking at Punk. Punk is looking down the aisle at Ricky. That's going to be our main event next week. And that's how they went off the air. That was the end of tonight's episode of Collision. Punk finally beats Samoa Joe. And I figured that's what they were going to do. Early in the show tonight, I figured that's what they were going to do once they really were driving home the point that Joe has never lost to CM Punk. Punk has never beaten Samoa Joe. They were saying it so much that it was just the idea that they were going to have Joe win again and drag this out. It didn't seem very likely to me. So him winning ended up not being much of a surprise, which is too bad, because I do think that if they hadn't really kind of shoved it down our throats so much tonight on commentary and kept pointing it out over and over again, if they would have just had Joe beat Punk, the story continues. And then, of course, you build to Punk finally beating Joe. But I also kind of figured it wasn't going to happen when I thought back to what Punk said about the big red belt, or the big red bag with the belt inside. Big red belt. I'm having flashbacks to when they debuted the Universal title. The red velvet bag with the belt inside. And what Punk said in his very first promo when he came back, I'm still the champion until somebody pins me or submits me. So that also made it unlikely that Punk was going to get pinned tonight. As far as where they go now, we know we're getting Punk and Starks next week. We're getting babyface against babyface. We're getting friend against friend on Collision next week. And there are a lot of different ways they can go with this. The predictable outcome is CM Punk winning the match, because for the reason I just mentioned, the story with Punk is that he should not be beaten until it is by somebody who, in his mind, deserves to win the championship that he never lost, that he's still carrying around with him, right? I'm still the champion until I get pinned or submitted for this. But then if somebody goes and pins him, because he's not going to submit, but if somebody goes and pins him, it kind of ruins that story. Unless it's someone like MJF, which is the whole point of why it seems unlikely that Punk is going to lose. I still feel like they're building to Punk and MJF. That's kind of like the ultimate match they seem to be building to. Who's the real AEW World Champion? And it kind of kills it if Punk loses before then. So the most likely outcome here is simply Samoa Joe, or CM Punk rather. I wish it was Samoa Joe. CM Punk just wins the Owen Hart Trophy. Wins the Owen Hart Trophy and then moves on to whatever it is he's going to do next. That is the least interesting of all the potential outcomes. To me, the least interesting outcome here is Punk winning and like a good sport shaking hands with Ricky Starks next week, and that's how they go off the air. That to me doesn't really interest me at all. Now, Samoa Joe made it very clear here that his issues with Punk are not done. So might we see Samoa Joe get involved next week, which leads even to a brief distraction, and that helps Ricky Starks win. Now, that doesn't really make Ricky look very strong if he needs an assist from somebody else to beat CM Punk, so even that idea doesn't really excite me. It's the finals of this tournament, so some type of interference, I mean, unless it leads to something big, like a big heel turn or something, that to me is also kind of lame, You shouldn't have that in the finals of this tournament. So to me, that's also not really a great option. But here's where it kind of gets interesting. I mentioned a possible heel turn. There could be a potential heel turn for either of the men in this match. CM Punk could go heel. I have always found CM Punk to be most interesting when he is a heel. So if Punk were to go heel next week, I mean, it doesn't seem that likely, but it's possible. I would like that very much. Now, it probably would mean that he is winning the Owen regardless. Maybe he cheats to win. He gets desperate. Ricky's a tougher opponent than he expected. One thing leads to another. Even if it's post-match, we get a heel turn, which would probably get him mega heat in Canada if he were to, beat up Ricky Starks after the fact. So a Punk heel turn cannot be ruled out, even though it seems unlikely. But what about Ricky Starks? I think Ricky Starks is a great babyface. The fans are behind him. If it were me, I probably wouldn't turn him, as much as the crowd seems to have taken to him as a fan favorite. But a heel turn for Ricky Starks, if they follow up on that by doing something big with him, could be a great thing for Ricky Starks. A heel turn for Ricky Starks could lead to him winning the Owen. What if he wins the Owen with an assist from Bullet Club Gold? Now you would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Bullet Club Gold has been making his life miserable for months. True, but it could be a situation where maybe he just decided if you can't beat him, join him. Maybe they made him a proposition he couldn't refuse. There's always some storyline explanation you can come up with for it. But again, I wouldn't rule that out. I certainly don't want to see Ricky Starks going heel and joining QT Marshall's crew. Now, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, the spot in the Starks and Hobbs match where QT was on the apron, and I just kept looking at him going, what are you doing? Like, why is he still on the apron? Why isn't he getting down? He's going to cost his man the match. And he did in the end. Ricky got the win. What if that was by design? All right, we're just throwing ideas out here. What if that wasn't just an awkward spot where they were waiting for their cue and Ricky was late and it just looked stupid? What if that was done by design? And QT Marshall intentionally cost Powerhouse Hobbs the win in that match for reasons that he would have to explain. And Ricky Starks ends up being a part of QT's crew. I don't want to see that. I'm not pitching that as the idea. I'm just saying, could that be an explanation for that awkward spot at the end of their match in the tournament? And if Ricky goes heel, maybe he links up with them and not with Bullet Club Gold. There's a lot of different ways that this could go, which is why I'm so interested in seeing this match next week, because I can't really predict who's going to go where, who's going to win. I think Punk is going to win, but I mean, Ricky Starks, if it's up to me, I'm putting Ricky over in this tournament. It's not like Punk needs the win. Does Punk need to win the Owen Hart tournament? No, of course not. Punk doesn't need the win. But does it work for Punk's story if he gets beaten? Look, you're talking to somebody here who would have had Joe beat him in his first match back. So I have no issue with beating CM Punk. But I'm just looking at it from the perspective of the story they seem to be telling. Maybe we end up with Punk against Starks at Wembley in a rematch. Maybe that's the Wembley Stadium match. I don't know. But I like that there's a lot of different ways that they can go with this. So that was Collision tonight. A very good show. Very good show, carried by not only the main event, but carried by that tag team match. The Starks and Hobbs match was really nothing special at all. The Julia Hart match was nothing. It was 90 seconds. The Scorpio Sky match really wasn't anything special. It was carried by those two matches. And had we gotten Athena and Willow Nightingale, I'd be talking about that match too, because that was one of the matches I was actually looking forward to the most on this show. It's just, now we'll have to just wait another week before we get it. But a very good show tonight. Here's the Twitter poll. 87%, almost 88%, thumbs up So saith the community here on Twitter. 12% thumbs down. How does this show get a thumbs down? Just for the tag team match alone. Just for the FTR match alone. How does this get a thumbs down? Well, I guess if you look at the full body of the 2 hours, I suppose there are some people who might not have been a fan, but to go thumbs down of all nights, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what those people are looking for exactly. I'd love to know. What is it that you want out of your wrestling show? Maybe it was Nick Khan. Nick Khan is sitting at home. He's got a shot of brandy. Watching the Solomonster review. Decides to vote and troll in the poll. You never know. You never know who's watching. You'd be surprised. All right, Julio Scissors, thank you for that 10 spot that got us started tonight. My man, Drew Johnson. This was the first of several $50 spots from Drew tonight. Trill Mexican 305 says, no lie, I just got a notification that Solomonster was going live tonight, and I just got to work. What a way to kick off my work shift. Well, you're very welcome. Any way I can help pass the time. Derek Fleming Jr., random question, N64 or Game Boy? I actually never owned an N64, so I have to go Game Boy because I did have one of those. I had a Game Boy, I had a Game Gear, I had a Game Genie. I did not have an N64. Drew Johnson with that second 50 bomb. Thank you again. Liquid Sharingan, $25 super chat. Brie mode, all elite win. Kidding, of course. You better be. I know I'm not going to make you happy with this, but how about them Braves? They're looking pretty hot, aren't they? Braves World Series. How are the Mets doing? I will tell you, I have no idea what's going on. The channel that the Mets games air on has been dropped by my provider. As of a week ago, I guess. And I've been so wrapped up with wrestling shit, I honestly have no idea what's going on. So I just haven't been paying attention. And I haven't seen any games in at least a week. So if the Braves are doing well, congrats to the Braves. Congrats to the Braves. May you throw a tomahawk chop and break your fucking hand. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. I'm kidding. No, I'm not. Cyrus the Virus. What's the hype around Scorpio Sky? I didn't know there was any hype around Scorpio Sky. I think he's the definition of mid and boring on the ring, and on the microphone. I think Scorpio Sky is a very competent in-ring performer, but I agree. I don't see him as an elite level performer. But I also don't see, I mean, you mentioned the hype around him. Has there really been hype around Scorpio Sky? Because if there is, I certainly haven't seen it. Oz and Glorious just has 2 words. Julia Hart. Joey with the $3 super chat. I appreciate these Saturday night streams, or seedy Sunday afternoon for me, as Australia doesn't have Collision available on TV yet. Well, don't get too comfortable. This is not necessarily an every week thing. This is what I call a week to week thing until we see how things are going. I was probably going to go live next week, but I don't really feel like sitting through 3 hours. If it was a 2-hour show, that would be one thing. It's like Raw. Yeah, I thought Raw was actually improving and getting better last year, and they suckered me in. And here we are a year later, and it's like, oh man, I feel hoodwinked. But Joey, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Oz and Glorious, we unexpectedly lost one of our furry friends last night. and another is very sick. I know it's a slow night, but I am grateful for the stream. Well, Oz, that sucks. I am very sorry to hear that. That always sucks. That always sucks when that happens, but I hope the furry friend who's very sick can somehow get better. But again, I know how that goes, so I'm thinking about you. Justin Glasner, all roads lead to Balzac and Regina. Great collision. I always love it when the Balzac and the Regina collide. I agree. That is a great collision. Timmy Too Dope, loved FTR against Bullet Club Gold, but way too many near falls. There were a lot of near falls in that match. It's one of those things where sometimes it annoys me and sometimes it doesn't. I could be watching an Adam Cole match. I mean, that's one of the staples of a lot of his matches. And it can annoy me. I could be watching another match that has a lot of near falls and it doesn't annoy me as much, even though there may be just as many near falls. This one, I think, did. If it were me, I would have shaved a few of them off. But I was enjoying the match so much that even the near falls we got, to me, it didn't hurt the match. It didn't ruin the match for me. I was enjoying it every step of the way up until the finish. It's a shame about the finish, but I really have no other complaints about that match. Drew Johnson, that third $50 super chat tonight. Frankie Rodriguez, my God, where the F is Malachi? Is he injured? I can't remember the last time we saw him in singles action. He's not injured. So I don't understand it either. I mean, we get these videos from him every week. It's these spooky videos. Now he's holding the mask that belongs to Andrade. I don't give a shit. Just get back in the ring. I want to see him in the ring. Jazz Jackrabbit. Balzac is not even the worst named city in Canada, brother. There is a city in Newfoundland called Dildo. That's the one that somebody tweeted me. That's what it was. That's what it was. Think long and hard if you want to visit there. Oh, I'll bet. Yeah. Shit. So we go from Balzac to Dildo to Regina. What was the other one? Goobies. I don't know, man. I don't know. You're going to tell me that's not done intentionally? Well, I'm glad I don't live in Dildo. How about that? I'll say that. As much as I'd like to get out of New York sometimes, I'd rather be here than in Dildo. Hoofman Entertainment. Wasn't Brett's story that his mom made him that Jackie? I mentioned that before. Why is Solomonster a Punk hater? Why does he hate Punk so much? What did he ever do to him? Love that super chat. I love that super chat. Daniel Malcolm, thank you for the 1992. Hulkling 93, Solo yearns for details on the double-jointed wife and then shrills Willow. Might get the wrong impression as to what happens without context. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I feel like you just insulted me. Hulkling, thank you. Jack Lopez, any Fight Forever content coming? I am planning on it. I just have not had the time. But yeah, I am planning on recording a Fight Forever gamer. The game's all installed. I was going through the options and stuff. I've mostly just been training. I really have not. I've intentionally tried to stay away from doing the big match modes. I haven't done any Road to the Elite yet, so I'm saving that for when I do record. Which I'm hoping will be sometime Sunday night. Once I get past this podcast tomorrow night, hopefully I'll be able to record my first video. Drew Johnson with the $50 says, nothing like 3 years ago when you could call in and talk to you. So cool hearing 276 on the air. I'll never forget how awesome it was calling into the show. Longtime supporter, my friend. Oh, I know. You've been a supporter for a long time, and it's funny, you know, we used to do the phone calls on the Dynamite streams. Part of the reason I liked it and I really started doing it also, honestly, was when everything was shut down and everybody was at home and everybody was all isolated because of COVID and everything, I just thought it was a cool thing to be doing because it, I don't know, in a weird way, it kind of felt like it was just bringing me closer to the audience, and I was able to just interact with people in ways that maybe at the time with everything going on I wasn't doing as much of. So it was almost like a comfort blanket in a way. And then so many people complained about the calls, and so eventually we phased them out. But you never know. You never know. We may bring them back from time to time. If people request it, if people are into the idea, then I'm open to it. Chris Mikesell with the $9.99. Imagine Owen and Kurt Angle as a tag team, then eventually feuding. They both had great personalities. Had WWE just let Owen be himself, he could have been bigger instead of that stupid gimmick that killed him. And all they had was that one dark match. That's it. Kurt Angle and Owen Hart had one dark match in 1999. I guess it was 99. Could have been 98, but I think it... Well, actually, you know what? No, it probably was 99. And to my knowledge, that's the only match they ever had. Jay Lopez, thank you for the $1.99. Pillow v Pillow. I look forward to listening to the podcast tomorrow while I eat sushi. I look forward to doing the podcast while I eat sushi. How about we do that? We'll do a sushi podcast tomorrow. I don't even like sushi. Although I don't know how I could say that. I don't know if I've ever actually eaten sushi. I think just the idea of it. You know what? I don't think I've ever actually tried sushi before. Now that I think about it, I don't even think I've tried it. I've been to places with friends and stuff, and they're having yellowtail and all kinds of different types of sushi. And just the idea of it never appealed to me, but I don't actually think I've ever tried it. So maybe I shouldn't judge. MH Nova. Peace, he says, Solo. Peace. It's business time, baby. Glad to hear you on a Saturday night. Who do you think is the best Jannetty ever? Mox, Christian, or someone else? You're comparing Marty Jannetty and Jon Moxley? Jon Moxley has been a world champion in 2 different major national promotions. And he's not doing too badly in Japan, too, when he travels over there for New Japan. I would not be comparing the career that Jon Moxley has had to the career that Marty Jannetty has had. That is an insult to Jon Moxley. So, of the options you've given me, even Christian, I mean, Christian's had a pretty good career. I know what you mean, though. You're when you put Christian on there, because Edge went on to be the bigger star, so Christian is the Jannetty. But I just think that's insulting to Christian. Like the lesser of 2, but Christian's had a pretty good career himself. Also, world champion across multiple promotions. If you count the ECW title in WWE. Not everybody would. HBKC83, when would you have MJF address CM Punk walking around with the bag and claiming to still be the AEW World Champion? Oh, if it's me, I'd probably wait. I might even wait until early next year. I mean, I don't see really the need to rush into it. Some people are going to say All Out, Chicago. I mean, I'd be fine even saving it for like Revolution or something. I just don't think it's something you need to rush into right now. Oh, Jazz, yeah, that's right. Christian did win the big gold belt. That's right. I don't know. For some reason, I had the ECW title on my brain. But yeah, Christian was a world heavyweight champion. JM with the $40 CM Punk super chat. The Collision intro just makes me miss Thunder Rosa on my wrestling. Hopefully she's healthy enough to return soon. Any word on where Serena Deeb is? You're the man, Solomonster. I've heard nothing on Serena Deeb. I believe she might be working behind the scenes with Tony Khan. But as far as wrestling, no, I've heard nothing on Serena Deeb. And Thunder Rosa, the latest update on Thunder Rosa is Doc Samson told her They're going to reevaluate the progress on her back in about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And at that point, it's possible she might be able to get cleared. So it's not close to happening like in the next few weeks or anything, but she has made progress. I think she's pain-free right now. So they're going to give it another 6 weeks and reevaluate. And at that point, maybe we'll hear about a Thunder Rosa return. But it's not anything that's going to happen until at least sometime in September. Toby, put Collision at 6. That will put people in front of the TV. That will put me in front of the television eating dinner, not getting ready to go live. So yeah, hey, if you put Collision on at 6, I could watch it while I eat dinner, but I ain't going to be streaming. It's too early. Justin Glasner, can you request Deezer get your podcast on there? I should already be on there, am I not? If not, I'm not sure if I can request it. I will certainly look into it. Some of these platforms just pick it up automatically. And Spreaker should be pushing it out automatically to various platforms. So I thought we were already on Deezer. I could look into it and find out. Wapatapa, Scorpio armed with demos and career suicide. All right, well, hey. Wapatapa, thank you. If you missed it, by the way, I was live last night talking about SmackDown. It was a big SmackDown show from Madison Square Garden with the Tribal Court segment with the Bloodline, big Bloodline angle on the show last night that went longer than the tag team match we had tonight with FTR. But both were excellent segments. And there was also some stuff I was not very happy about, including certain people who were missing from the show. So if you missed the review, make sure you go back and check out my SmackDown review from last night. And of course, before we wrap things up here, I would not leave you hanging, since you guys did come through with a lot of cool super chats and kind words tonight. And we still have more coming in. My gift to you is Be the Booker. So let's go ahead and be the Booker here on a Saturday night.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Let's
it
do
is
it.
now time to be the Booker.
Let's do it. Hey, Wink the Cosmic Grandma with the $4.99. Adam Cole standing next to Brian Cage where Big Bill is going to be interesting. Oh my God, that's right. You know, that's a good point. Oh boy, yeah, it's going to be MJF and Adam Cole against Big Bill and Brian Cage on Dynamite this week. And Brian Cage is actually not tall. I mean, he's obviously a big guy. But Big Bill next to Adam Cole is going to be ridiculous if they end up in the ring together. So, might be wise to not have the two of them side by side. Maybe leave that to MJF. But anyway, let's be the Booker. We're going to kick things off here with the male Be the Booker, and then we shall do female. Always good to do female. All right, here we go. Kick things off with Kenny Omega, the former AEW World Champion and IWGP World Champion as well. Kenny Omega. How's that for kicking off an AEW version of Be the Booker? You can't get any bigger than that, right? I guess maybe Punk. Kenny Omega is going to get into the ring and go, oh, please land on Jim Cornette. Please land on Jim Cornette. That would be fantastic. Kenny Omega going to go one-on-one with The Miz. I got to give it the bell just because it's Kenny Omega. And I think Kenny Omega going in there against The Miz, it's not going to be a bad match. It's just not the most exciting match. But I still think Kenny Omega against The Miz deserves the belt. It's Kenny Omega against somebody new. A former two-time WWE champion. Let that sink in. 2 times WWE champion. WrestleMania headliner. Not the best Kenny Omega match, but it'll do. You know what? It's someone for him to beat in his first match in WWE. How's that? All right, over on the women's side, we begin with Tori from Degeneration X. There she is, Tombstone Tori, who was dating Kane for a while in storyline. Tori going to go one-on-one with Maria Kanellis. Not a very marquee match. Not a very marquee match there. I don't know about that. This is going to be our tiebreaker for tonight. Comes down to tag teams on a night where we got some great tag team wrestling. Right? In tribute to FTR and Bullet Club Gold, we got to book ourselves a strong tag team main event here. We begin with Best Friends. All right. You can hear the excitement in my voice. Best Friends against Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. The Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. As Jim Ross said on commentary, Pat Patterson has had some rear end work done at the Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. Good old JR. I love that shirt. First Intercontinental Champion, Rio de Janeiro. What a great tournament that was. What a classic tournament that was in Rio de Janeiro. Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe against Best Friends. Oh boy. 1 for 3. See, you're right. That's a couple of real best friends right there. It's Patterson and Briscoe. Juan Ocampo coming in with a $4.99. Winston says 0 for 3, so you disagree with Kenny Omega against The Miz, right? Okay. All right. Juan Ocampo says, I'm hammered on the train in Chicago. What's going on? Don't at me. Buy or sell on the better theme. Burn in Your Light or Johnny Sameface Rebel Heart? Both slap. Rebel Heart. Until that awful remix. The original Rebel Heart, it's a great song. And I didn't hate Randy Orton's old music either. I know he did. He hated that music. But I'm buying on Rebel Heart. I'm selling on Burn in My Light. Can we get the IWGP Intercontinental Champion back? We cannot. They unified those titles. That's it. It's gone. It's dead. I remember when Naito held that belt. Because the Intercontinental title had the white strap in New Japan. And Naito just, he just beat the shit out of that belt. He would just toss it around. It was all, like, the strap was, like, so dirty and black. And it was just beaten to shit. But I still like the belt. It was actually a very nice looking wrestling belt. Yeah, Naito, he just chucked it all over the place like it was a piece of trash. He chucked it all over the place like it was the 24/7 title. Do I watch Family Guy or South Park? I used to watch South Park like 20 years ago. So I don't watch South Park. I don't watch Family Guy. I've seen clips, but do I watch it like on a regular basis? I do not. I don't even remember the last time I watched a full episode, so I don't. Although I've had people tell me there's a show on Netflix, and I'm not like big into anime or anything, but it's like a different style of animation. It's the show on Netflix called Arcane. I've had a lot of people kind of talk that show up and say, oh, you'll like it. You should try it. Maybe. I mean, I've heard some interesting things about it. It's called Arcane. I don't know if anybody has seen that show. So I might give that a shot. Jazz Jackrabbit. Worst commercial featuring a wrestler. Worst commercial featuring a wrestler. I know one of my favorite commercials was the Sting Sprite commercial where he beat the hell out of that little kid. That was pretty cool. Worst commercial with a wrestler, though. Hey, Irvin, you're very welcome. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sure I've seen some terrible commercials. I see them every Monday night, but commercial with a wrestler in it. I don't know. Honestly, it's probably some local commercial that was shot. The Briscoes, Jay and Mark, were doing local commercials for some kind of pool, I think some kind of pool equipment store in the area where they lived. And those were pretty entertaining. They were doing them right up until the end. Those were pretty entertaining. Slim Jim. Do not speak ill of the Randy Savage Slim Jim commercials. That will not be tolerated. Does Wrestle Rock Rumble count? That was a music video, though, wasn't it? That wasn't a commercial. Chris Jericho did a Taco Bell commercial in 2000. Wasn't there a Chef Boyardee commercial where Brock Lesnar gave an F5 to a shark? Or am I just completely making that up? I could have sworn that was a thing. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that on the podcast tomorrow. Mark Briscoe is getting a shot at the Ring of Honor World Championship very soon. The announcement was made this week. And I have some thoughts on that. I have some thoughts on whether or not he should actually win the title or not now, or if they should hold off on that. So that'll be part of the show tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things on the podcast tomorrow, episode 816. I got a lot to say about LA Knight, and I got a lot to say about Kevin Nash's comments about LA Knight. I've got a lot to say about Blood and Guts and the big report that came out today about CM Punk offering to be part of Blood and Guts. Yes, this is a real thing. So I'm going to talk about that as well. Got a lot of stuff to get into tomorrow. Feel like I'm doing a podcast every day at this point. I see. The Brock commercial was an ad for SummerSlam. I thought it was a Chef Boyardee commercial. I know, man. Yeah, I know Mankind did the Chef Boyardee, but I thought that was also a Chef Boyardee commercial for some reason. The Winston Slip. Is that some kind of dance move? Which wrestler should fight Spider-Man in a movie? We already had a wrestler fight Spider-Man in a movie. His name was Randy Savage as Bonesaw McGraw. Nobody did it better, and nobody will ever do it better. You know what I like to think, though? I like to think that Randy Savage, he wasn't a wrestler. He was an actor. He was so good. He spent over 30 years preparing for his role as Bonesaw McGraw by being a professional wrestler until he finally got his big break. He knocked it out of the park. Base Beerus, God of Seduction, Hulk Hogan naked on the wrecking. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You had to remind me. Oh, boy. Now, what was that for? Was that like a web hosting commercial, Squarespace or something? It was Hulk Hogan, buck-ass naked. He had a shirt on, but from the bottom down, he was wearing nothing but a thong, swinging on a wrecking ball, I think, while the Miley Cyrus song played. Yeah, I'm sorry to traumatize you, but that was a real thing. I just don't remember. It might have been a web host or something. God, I tried to forget about that. Oh my God, why would you remind me of this at midnight when I'm going to be going to bed soon? Oh my God. Oh boy. Chris Mikesell. Hey, Solomonster, do you remember that Stone Cold commercial where he is doing the Cesaro swing to D'Lo Brown? It was like a collect call commercial. I don't remember that, but they used to do those like 10-10-3-2-1 commercials. There were a couple of them. 10-10-3-2-1. There was another one. I don't remember what it was. I remember the Kane Stacker 2 commercials. I love those. The Kane Stacker 2 commercials were great. There have actually been a lot of really good, funny wrestler commercials. God, now I can't get Hulk Hogan on that wrecking ball out of my head. Irvin says, I had no idea that was a thing. Disgusting. Yeah, you can go find it. You'll find it. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm sure it's on there. Ico Pro. That's right. Ico Pro. You've got to want it. 6 lenses. Brett wrestling the chicken commercial. Brett wrestling the chicken? What the hell is that? Super Hot Vector Man. I am on Threads. Apparently, it just ported over my Instagram name. So whereas on Twitter, I'm just Solomonster. On Threads, I'm the Solomonster. I don't know if this Threads thing is going to last though. Seems kind of boring. I'll be honest with you. Twitter is still much more preferable to Threads, but I am on there. But I want to know more about this Brett chicken commercial. I have no idea what you're talking about. He wrestled a chicken? Really? I've never seen this before. Alex Hernandez. Sting is a grown man. Loved your share to that comment. Sting is a grown... yeah, he is. I don't know what you're trying to say. He is a grown man. He's 64 years old. And I think he's losing his mind. That tends to happen the older you get. You start doing a lot of crazy things. Power Spine says the commercials that I can think about are the Roddy Piper WWF Hasbro commercials. He was clearly on something during filming. Oh, you think he was on something because of the commercials? He was always on something. Go watch any Roddy Piper promo, any Piper's Pit segment. When was he not on something? He was high on life. Dusty Rhodes selling cars. There are a lot of wrestlers. Jerry Lawler, over the years, has done a ton of commercials locally in Memphis, because obviously he's very well known in Memphis. So I'm sure he's promoted a whole bunch of different restaurants and all kinds of things in the Memphis area. These days, I hear John Cena's voice in every Honda commercial. It's not very exciting. The Winston Slip says, buy or sell Bonesaw or Thunderlips from Rocky 3. Gotta go Bonesaw. Bonesaw would murder Thunderlips. But, you know who outdoes both of them? As much as I love Randy Savage and Bonesaw was great, and Thunderlips obviously got Hogan a lot of attention, you know who beats them out? Andre. Andre and the Princess Bride. As Fezzik the Friendly Giant, he beats them both out. Brian Mack, thank you for the $4.99. He says, hey, Solomonster, if you were in Brett's shoes, would you have refused the job to Sean in Montreal, or would you have done the job regardless? I mean, it's an impossible question to ask. If if I hated him as much as Brett did, or if I felt as disrespected by the whole situation as Brett clearly did, I don't know. I think that what I would have done was, honestly, I would have just had a conversation. And this goes to something I always say. Communication can solve 95% of the problems that are out there, especially in the wrestling business. And to me, when you have people who are going back and forth and they're playing telephone with each other and third parties, just get everybody in the room together and go, okay, look, what is the issue between the two of you? Right? Brett says that he was willing to do the job, and Sean said, well, I thank you, I respect that, but I just want you to know I'm not willing to do the same. And that was the comment that just sparked everything. And Brett said, well, fuck this guy. I'm not going to job for him if he's not willing to do the same for me. What is that? How do you say that to somebody? If I were Vince McMahon, I would have gotten them in the room together and I would have hashed it out a long time, before Survivor Series. And I would have said, look, whatever's gone on between you two, you guys used to be friends, right? All this shit's gone down here. We're heading into a big match. I have a business to run. Let's hash this out. That didn't happen because you're dealing with massive egos. You're dealing with massive egos on both sides. And frankly, I'm not sure that Vince was all that bothered by the fact that he had a little feud between two of his top stars. I think, if anything, he kind of stirred the pot and encouraged it. In the end, of course, it ended up being a gigantic headache for him. But I just think that if it were me, I'd want to get in a room and just hash this out. Like fucking professionals, and say, look, dude, like here's my gripe. I want to do business the right way, but here's where I have an issue with you. Let him respond. Let Vince play mediator. Maybe we can come to some kind of agreement here. Because I'm not looking to be difficult. I'm the kind of person where I don't want to cause trouble. I am the kind of person, I don't want to be a pain in the ass to anybody. So I think, me personally, I would go out of my way to try to come up with some kind of solution beforehand. I wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm not going to job to that guy. But that's me. In the end, I would have just done what I was told to do if we couldn't work it out, because I'm still working for this other person who's paying me very well. But I can understand Brett, feeling the way that he felt. So, again, unless I'm in that person's shoes for real and I'm experiencing, the feelings that they're feeling and the emotions that are, that they're dealing with, I can't give you a 100% accurate answer. It's like somebody who says, oh, if I'm in a bank and the bank is being robbed, oh man, I would try to tackle the gunman and take the gun out of his hand. Well, that sounds all well and good until you find yourself one day in a bank when it's being robbed and you have piss running down your leg. You don't know how you're going to react until you're actually in that situation. You can talk a big talk, but you don't know shit until you experience it. We don't know everything that Brett was being told or going through, and everything that was going through his head at the time. And he's written books about it, he's done interviews, but you can't fully put yourself in that person's shoes unless you are in that person's shoes. I respect the fact that Brett took what he did very seriously. Obviously, wrestling was... Look, he was born into a wrestling family, so of course he took it seriously. His father was Stu Hart, for crying out loud. Stu fucking Hart. So yeah, Brett took wrestling seriously. No shit. So did everybody else in that family who was brought up in the fucking dungeon. I can understand why he would take it seriously. Frankly, I wish more people took things like the championship seriously instead of treating it like one big fucking, like a play. Anyway. Hulkling, how's communication working with Charles Manson? Charles Manson? I have no idea. Charles Manson is rotting away somewhere. I'm talking about wrestling. I'm not talking about... Oh, you mean Charles Mason. I thought you were talking about Charles Manson, which is what you wrote here. Those are two very different people. Both of them are assholes. But, okay, he's talking about Charles Mason from House of Glory. Well, he's just a fucking idiot. I don't... There's nothing to discuss there. I'm the commissioner. What I say goes. That's pretty much it. There's no room for compromise. There's no room for discussion. I'm the commissioner. You do what you're told. It's just the way it is. Although honestly, the way things are going, I may have to I may have to pull a Vince in Montreal to get that championship off of him. I thought he was talking. I literally, because he wrote Charles Manson, I thought he was talking about Charles Manson. I said, "Fuck that guy. He's rotting away somewhere." Terrible. Terrible. We got Alex Hernandez. Oh, the bump on the table on Dynamite. Sting's bump on the table on Dynamite. Yeah, I'm a little worried about Sting. He's going to do what he's going to do, but you keep doing crazy bumps and then you keep wanting to top yourself, and eventually it just, bad things happen. Six Lenses, Brett wrestled Humpty, not a chicken. So he wrestled Humpty Dumpty? Again, I haven't seen this commercial. I'm going to have to look this up. If Charles Manson was a wrestling fan, he definitely would have been a fan of Jake the Snake Roberts. Mason the Mutilator. That was going to be Mankind's name, right? That's what Vince wanted to call him originally. He was going to be Mason the Mutilator. Which Undertaker and Kane match is the best? He says, for me, it is WrestleMania 14. Undertaker and Kane did not have very many good matches together. I mean, I understand the story aspect of it. It was this great story they built up in terms of their actual matches. I mean, the Inferno match was a nice spectacle. Watching the Undertaker dive over the rising flames onto Kane and Vader outside the ring is just this awesome, memorable visual. I guess by default it would be the WrestleMania 14 match. I mean, what other great matches did Undertaker and Kane ever have? I can't think of any. So I think you're right. I think it's WrestleMania 14. Hey, Wally Walls. Thank you for the $9.99. It's very good to hear from you. Should Brock squash Cody at SummerSlam? It starts the hard time storyline for Cody as maybe the Bloodline storyline winds down. No. Brock should not squash Cody at SummerSlam. Cody should beat Brock in a competitive match. His hard times is trying to beat Brock at SummerSlam in whatever the stipulation is they come up with. Because it's going to be some kind of stipulation match. He already lost to Brock once. He should not lose to Brock again. Cody needs to beat Brock and move on. Because honestly, this feud is done. This feud is done. Cody does not need to lose to Brock to start some sort of hard time storyline. His hard time storyline is, if you want to do a hard time story, is simply trying to scratch and claw his way back into the championship picture. And right now, the only way for him to do that and to get the title that he really wants is to win the Royal Rumble for a second time, because that's the only way he's going to get on SmackDown. SmackDown is where the WWE Championship is. Whether they de-unify it or it's just sort of all, unified and merged together, that's where the title is that would complete his story. It's not the World Heavyweight title on SmackDown. So how does he get to SmackDown to challenge Roman Reigns or whoever the champion is at WrestleMania 40? His journey there, that's the story. It doesn't have to be him getting squashed by Brock. I don't want to see that. Cody beat Brock. Brock beat Cody. This is the rubber match. Cody needs to win. Drew Johnson with another $10 super chat. HBK is the GOAT. Brett was always just the baby. It was always people doing him wrong. HBK owned his stuff and was still the icon we know and loved. That's right. Shawn Michaels, when he lost his smile. Had a debilitating knee injury that he thought could end his career. It's terrible, right? It's awful. And then 4 weeks later, he was dancing around like a Chippendales dancer at WrestleMania. I don't know. That knee looked pretty good to me. And the month after that, he was back in the ring. Always the honest guy. But Shawn is one of the greatest of all time. I can't debate you on that. I know Drew is a huge HBK fan. NJ Days. Solo. Is Rosanna Scotto the GOAT? Rosanna Scotto's pretty cool. I've met Rosanna before. Doing some PR stuff with clients. Rosanna has been a staple here on the local Fox affiliate here in New York for years on the morning show. I think she used to do the 10 p.m. news as well, but she's been a staple on the morning show for many years. There's a popular kind of restaurant chain in the city called Fresco on the Go. I know her family owns that. Brian Mack, if you were Eric Bischoff in 98-99, what is one thing you would have done differently in WCW? I would not have fucked up the Starrcade 97 main event. That's one thing I wouldn't have done. And I also would have booked a pay-per-view at the Georgia Dome instead of a random episode of Nitro. And on that pay-per-view, I would have had Bill Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan in a heavily promoted pay-per-view main event that I could have made money off of. That's another thing I would have done. It's not Rosanna Scott. Rosanna Scotto. She's a newscaster in New York. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Laurie Stokes used to be on the morning show with her when she moved over from ABC, and then I noticed that she was gone. I don't watch Fox, really, but I knew of Laurie Stokes when she was doing the morning news on the ABC affiliate for many years. So I didn't realize now she's on the 10 p.m. show. I just thought she disappeared. I go, where'd she go? But apparently she's on the 10 p.m. newscast now. All the non-New Yorkers going, what the fuck are you talking about? Yes, that's right. MH, that's right. I was on NBC live with Pat Battle. Pat Battle is she has been an anchor on the local NBC station for, I don't know, maybe at least 25 years, maybe 30 years. And it was very cool when I was promoting my mother's children's book, when they had me in studio. At first, I wasn't sure who I was doing the interview with. And then they said that it was going to be Pat. Pat was going to be the one sitting with me and interviewing me. And she's a cancer survivor. You know, she's had her own cancer story. So that was very cool. And I had the chance to sit down with her and talk to her that day. And she's a cool lady. She's very cool. And Dr. Scorpio, I don't recall ever seeing a world champion giving up the title due to losing their smile. That's why Brett is the GOAT. He said it, not me. Take it up with Drew. I'm going to have to be the booker soon between Drew Johnson and Dr. Scorpio. Drew with the $5. HBK coming back from a back injury and putting people over, having unbelievable match after unbelievable match. Hart fell apart at WCW. Funny how things work out. Thank you, Drew. WCW 2000 was some of the worst garbage ever. Gee, I wonder who was booking WCW at that time. I wonder. NJ Days, I remember Rosanna interviewing an absolutely wasted Jenna Jameson. Will Rock come back at SummerSlam? No. Hulkling93, don't ever forget when Solo checked the caller for saying the Hart Foundation didn't have great matches. Yeah, I had to check a lot of callers back in the day. Maybe that's why I don't do calls anymore. Oh, man. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. This has been fun, just hanging out, answering questions, shooting the shit. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for hanging out with me on a Saturday night. This was a very good show tonight. Excellent tag team match. And I will keep you posted if I'm going to be live again next Saturday. I was planning on probably being live. I'm not really enamored with watching a 3-hour show and then going live. So I don't know what I'm going to do. But tomorrow, episode 816 of The Sound Off will be dropping sometime probably mid-afternoon. So make sure that you are subbed and following on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts, or any of the platforms where you listen to audio shows. That is where you can find The Sound Off. That will be tomorrow. And then back live with you again on Monday night, for the Monday Night Raw stream. So be well, stay safe. Go check out the SmackDown stream from last night if you missed it. And we'll come back and do it all over again on Monday. Until then,